Hey guys, Manny here. In this video, I'll be showing you my 3 favorite ways of using delay. I'll be covering one way of using delay in a mix, one way of using delay in production, and lastly, one way of using delay as a sound design tool. And if you guys do learn something new today, make sure you hit that like button, comment down below, and subscribe for more videos just like this. Most of us already know what delay is, but if you don't, just check out this video here and then come back straight to this one. All right, so most of us use delay on vocals, synths, drums, and we tend to use it to hear that repeat delay signal over time. And we have heard this countless amount of times, right? And it's a great way to fill out the frequency spectrum. But I want to share a technique I use from time to time when mixing with delay. And this technique allows you to add a little bit of depth and some width to your music. The first technique is called the Haas Effect. Now, for those that don't know, the Haas Effect is when our ears or our brain perceive 2 sounds as one. And it's actually really simple to do. So I have this basic bass and some sort of synthy pattern, and it sounds like this currently. That really retro synth-wavy 80s sound is probably one of my favorite genres, to be completely honest. But I've got an echo loaded and a stereo imager loaded at the bottom, and I'm just going to turn both of these on. Now, to achieve that Haas effect, you want to make sure that your dry wet is at 100% wet, and you want to make sure the feedback is on 0%, and you want to unlink the left and the right channels, and you want to keep them in time mode. So if you're in sync, just switch them over to time mode. And I'm going to put the left channel down to 1 milliseconds, and the right channel I'm going to keep round about 12.4 actually. Now, to achieve that Haas effect, you need to make sure you have a delay offset of round about 5 milliseconds to around 35 or 40 milliseconds. Anything above 40 milliseconds, our ears will start to perceive it as 2 different sounds. So we can see the left channel is at 1 millisecond and our right channel is at 12.4 milliseconds. So if I press play right now, our synth will actually sound much wider. So let's have a listen to it, and I'm going to toggle it on and off. So we can really hear that synth got much wider with the Haas effect on, right? When I turned it off, it sounded like it was more centered, more grounded. But when I turned on the echo with that Haas effect, it really pushed it out to the sides. And this is great if we want to get a wider mix, like I previously mentioned. But, and there is a big but, you need to be careful of your phase. All right, we don't want to introduce any phasing issues when using the Haas effect. And the easiest way to monitor this would be by using A, our ears, and B, a phase correlation meter. So I've got Isotopes Imager, and I just want to keep an eye on my stereo field, my stereo width, and also this phase correlation meter. So I'm going to turn the echo off, and let's actually see where our phase correlation meter is sitting. That's perfect. So it's hovering at the +1 side, so we're definitely not getting any phasing issues. But let's turn on the echo and let's see what happens. You just need to find that correct sweet spot and just make sure you don't have any phasing issues. So just maybe adjust the right channel slightly. Let's have a listen to it now. And do you see how the different timings on each channel, in this instance I'm manipulating the right channel, is affecting our phase correlation? So just be mindful of that. Just make sure that there's no phasing issues and you can get a really cool wide sounding mix. And another thing that you need to bear in mind as well is to just make sure that if you are using the Haas effect, make sure it translates to mono correctly as well. All right, make sure you don't lose that signal. And again, if you do lose that signal, that means you've definitely got some sort of phasing issues going on while using that Haas effect. All right, so that's one of my favorite ways of using delay in a mix, or just to make something sound a little bit wider. It's a great way of using it. So let's have a look at my second favorite way of using delay, but this time in the production stage. So another great way to use delay would be to use it to emulate some sort of analog flutter, almost like a vinyl or a tape, micro adjusting the pitch over time. And this technique's really cool for those trap melodies or any lo-fi sort of music, and it can sound really cool. So I'm just going to reach for some sort of audio loop or something. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And drag that in. And that's at 140 BPM, so I'm just going to up my BPM as well. I'm just going to mute out any layers that are on top of this. Get rid of this warp because it's no longer needed. And I'm going to drag on that echo effect again, or any sort of delay, but like I said, I'm just going to be using echo for this tutorial. And you want to keep this dry wet up to 100%. And I'm going to turn this filter off as well. Turn this feedback all the way down to 0. And I want to keep these linked, but I don't want it in sync mode. I want it in time mode, so I'm going to keep it round about there. And watch what happens to the signal, right? We're going to start getting that analog flutter or that tape sort of sound by just adjusting the left and right channels over time. So we can actually automate the left and right to give us that sort of analog tape feeling. But if you have got Ableton, all you need to do is just head over to the Max for Live and just literally grab the LFO. And the LFO, if you can't find the LFO, actually, it's just in the Max Audio Effects. And we can map the LFO to our left and right signal. And we can see that it's automatically manipulating the left and rights. And I'm just going to turn that rate down so it's a little bit slower. Change the depth as well, because it's a little bit too much, and change the offset as well. So start maybe around the 8 o'clock mark. And let me just loop this, and let's have a listen to what we've got now. So again, we can definitely hear that coming into play, and this effect is super cool, right? So again, use it on trap melodies, lo-fi music, but you don't really need to just stick to trap melodies or lo-fi music. You can use it on anything you want. You can use it on any sort of bass patches, synths, or anything that requires a little bit of movement with that mapping of the LFO. And another cool little trick with this is, if you manipulate this dry wet and just turn it down ever so slightly, we can hear a really cool chorusy sort of flangery sort of sound. So let's have a listen to that. But again, if you are manipulating that dry wet, just be careful of any phasing issues, all right? Phasing is a huge problem. Any phase cancellation is a big problem when we're mixing down our music or when we're trying to add special effects, and it can disrupt your music if you're not careful. All right, on to my last way of using delay, but this time I want to talk about using delay as a sound design trick. So just going to get rid of this LFO. I'm actually going to keep this same sample over here, and I'm going to turn the output down. And for this, if you do want to do this trick, make sure you turn the output of your echo down. Otherwise, you're just going to blast your whole ears off, especially if you're using headphones. And I'm going to turn down my track ever so slightly as well. So I want to keep the dry wet at 100%. And I'm going to come to this feedback, and I want to change that feedback to 115. Or maybe actually, let's turn that down a little bit. Let's just change it to around about 105%. And we want to keep the left and right channels linked, but I'm going to turn them up to 2.5 seconds. Now, I use this trick quite a lot to get some cool textures, get some cool effects. And again, just endless possibilities here. You can drag in any sort of audio sample, or you can manipulate any sort of MIDI. The world's your oyster here. Just have fun, and there's just no limits to this. So if I press play and I manipulate these left and right channels, let's have a listen to what the delay is doing to the signal. So a huge amount of fun can be had using delay in this way. And what I usually do is I will probably record that signal into a new audio track, and from there I can just manipulate it as I want. I can either pop it into a sampler or a simpler and mess around with it more, or I can re-synthesize it, pop it into something like Serum, for example, and convert it into a wavetable and just have fun with it. So there are tons of ways to use delay, and these three are probably my favorite ways of using them. Well, guys, that's going to be everything for today. I just want to thank you guys for watching, and if you did enjoy this, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.